Hey everybody, it's Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. Hello, it's Monday, August 31, 2020. Where is the time going? I am very happy to bring to you a new topic today, and this is going to be part of a series I hope I'll do more of, which is what the heck do other people do at their jobs? You know, in UX, we get so upset when people don't understand what we do, and we get a little bit snotty about that, but you know what? We don't know what they do. And it's really time that we become more conversational, maybe not fluent, but more conversational in other jobs. So today we are going to learn more about DevOps. And remember that we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you have questions, I am watching the chat room for questions. And let me introduce today's guest. And he is Eswaran Balakrishnan. And we met at a conference, I think it was last year. So please introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you very much, Debbie. And happy Monday to everybody who's listening in, tuning in, YouTube or whatever channels you have. And my name is Eswaran Balakrishnan, and I have the pleasure of meeting Debbie last year Agile Deliver Conference, I guess. And I've been impressed by the her one of the conference talks and the passion for her towards UX and CX customer experience and all of these areas. And I'm so happy to be here and fully present and talk about the aspect of DevOps and what is it about and what is it not. And hopefully you all get some value out of this next 60 minutes time.
Yeah, and please tell everybody a little bit more about your background because you've been working in agile
Yes.
engineering forever. No offense.
Yes, yes. So I have a couple of decades of experience in the engineering world in IT from 2000, right? So I've been a accidental agile coach, an engineering manager turned agile coach almost 6 years back. One of my good mentors that I look forward handpicked me that, hey, you should, guys like you who say the fact and who are passionate about technology and organizational change should be on this side of the aisle. So I was grabbed literally, voluntold to be as an agile coach. From then on, I never looked back. It was really it's a good journey. There is always ups and downs in any career. So I had ups and downs too. But overall, it has been a tremendous learning. So what I do basically is go to clients and organization who are trying to do agile transformation. So as you may, if you are not new to agile, then you will definitely be able to appreciate that agile is just not the process side of the world, right? You try to do stand-ups and sprint planning, and you just cannot call yourself agile. It's just stand-up, sprint planning, and Scrum. These are all just small portions, small aspects of the whole umbrella of agile. Uh, I forgot to put mute on my phone. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So going back to agile has more different aspects. There are different pillars in agility, I would say. Recently, I used the word pillars. So one is the process aspect of it, then you have the technical aspect of it, then there's a leadership and cultural aspect of it. So I tend to focus on the technical agility for an organization or teams. So that's what I've been doing for all these years. So DevOps is central to my coaching training programs. So yeah, that's pretty much what I try to do. So any questions? I'm still connected with the Debbie, and I'm in LinkedIn too, so we can take more questions as well.
And also, before I ask you the first questions I have, please spell your name slowly for the people listening on the audio-only version.
Sure. My name is Eswaran Balakrishnan. The first name is Eswaran. Eswaran. And last name is Balakrishnan. It's quite a big one, mouthful. A L A K R I S H N A N. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
Now
that's
everyone
my
can
name.
stalk you online. So I didn't know anything about DevOps until I started speaking at DevOps conferences about 2 years ago. And now I have like this much of an idea. So why don't you start, please, with just an overview, kind of the 1 or 2 minute version of what is DevOps?
Of course, definitely, Debbie. So DevOps is not a tool, right? It is a or a specific one single practice. Instead, it is a movement. And so, well, so obviously, for the listeners' benefit, you should never accept anybody trying to sell DevOps, right, as a package or as a product. Don't believe that, right? So DevOps is a movement, and the first word DevOps is used by or coined by the very famous extreme programming pair or during 2009, a velocity conference, orally velocity conference in 2009. They are John Allspaw and Paul Hammond. So they were engineers working in Flickr, and they were sharing their experience about how were they able to do 10 deployments per day in Flickr.
Mm.
Mind you, we are talking about 11 years back. So 10 releases or deployments into production in a single day is something unheard of those days, including Amazon's. Amazon is still kind of a evolving stage at that time. Google's, it is still new. It is still something impossible. So those are the guys who coined the word DevOps. So from then on, so many other practices catch up along that. There is three ways: wave one, wave two, wave three. I can go deep into that, but there are three waves they classify DevOps into. The first wave is about bringing customers closer into the engineers, right? Cutting out the middleman, right? Bringing customers and they feeling about what the customer's real pain. So and being cross-functional a little bit. So that was the DevOps, the wave one, and the wave two started about and even wave one also talks about more of the lead time. How much of lead time from a time that you got a customer problem, and how much time it took for you to fix the problem and move to production all the way. So the lead time and the cycle time aspect of it, that's the first wave of DevOps optimization. Then the second wave comes about the feedback of what is the feedback. So how quick I can get feedbacks about from not just from customers, but on the systems that I am operating upon. Feedback cycle. And third wave of DevOps is the learning and experimentation mindset, hypothesis driven development and other stuff. So it's a long answer, I know, but the concept of DevOps really started from 2009. Before that, there was Agile and continuous delivery, but DevOps actually started in 2009.
Okay, so obviously, many of us in UX, we think about engineering and we imagine a developer writes code, somebody in QA tests the code looks good, it goes live to the customer. But I know from DevOps, there's a lot of stuff that happens between QA saying this code is good and the customer seeing this product live. Can you tell me a little bit about what happens in between and where DevOps comes in?
Yes. Okay. So once again, Debbie, that is one slice of what you mentioned the DevOps participate, but DevOps have the aspect of technical practices. Then DevOps also have the aspect of cultural practices. Culture kills what kills what for breakfast?
Oh, right.
There is a
I forgot
famous,
that.
yeah, there is a, there was a very famous,
Yeah, I will look. I will Google that while you
that,
answer the rest of the
yeah, that
question.
was a
I know what you're talking about.
extremely, so, yeah, yeah. So I'm stuck on that, that phrase too. So,
Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
strategy for breakfast. So, how much ever strategy, and it has failed over and over again. It never worked when you have a toxic culture. So, the DevOps important aspect is technical practices and cultural practices. Both have to complement each other. And back to your question, Debbie, what happened um, before DevOps, or even today, 2020, we are talking about even today happens is developer writes code, QA tests, and they throws the code, the working code, to somebody else for packaging and releasing, deploying to the production, right? So this cycle is highly inefficient. We talked about the lead time, right? So organizations have developers as under working under one particular group of under a CIO. Let's say there is another group called testers. They work into another different organization, QA organization. They have QA CIO or VP somebody. Then there is this operations experts, who are responsible for configuring the server, deploying the code, monitoring the code, and finally receiving the alerts or whatever. Right? So these have these three different silos already. Problem is the time and the flow get stopped at each of these isolations. So DevOps' original intention is that to bring, Paul Hammond was able to achieve this level of speed to deploy because they have a seamlessly collaborating dev and ops in the same team, and they were fully empowered with a powerful, good leadership and a very strong, good culture, which is the core reason for DevOps to succeed in Flickr in 2009. So that is these. We can probably send it the link for the Orally conference talk from 2009 because that was the core essence of DevOps, and still we missed several marks, to achieve that level of speed and agility with the safety. So those things are still missing.
Thanks. Another thing that I hear a lot about, both mentioned in places where I work and in conferences I go to, is the CI/CD pipeline. And I'm sure most UX people don't know what that means. Is there a pipeline somewhere? Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. Yes. There is two aspects here: the CI/CD aspect of it.
Someone needs you. Work from home pandemic era.
Yes, I have. Today is the first day
First day of school. That's right.
School for my son and daughters in North Carolina. And the funny part is, the son is a pre-K, and he also starts a remote school today. So how exciting is today?
Good luck. Good luck, Dad.
Good luck. So back to your question about CI and CD. So
Yeah.
anytime you hear from a UX experience, or from any non-tech background, you hear these words. There is always two aspects. One is the practice, and there is a tooling aspect of it.
Okay.
People take. I always advise and coach them to see the genuinity of the practice, and if the tool is doing justice to the practice. Let's go one by one. Continuous integration, you mentioned.
Right.
Continuous integration is a good old XP practice. XP is something called as extreme programming. That is a word used by the core pure agilist in early 2000s when they were crafting the Agile Manifesto. So continuous integration means I integrate all my work all the time. Basically, what supposed to be an integration pain, we're bringing the pain early into my development life cycle. So, integration to QA, integration with business, integration with infrastructure, everything. I'm trying to bring in them early into my software development life cycle, which means today more than half of the teams are not even doing CI properly. They are only integrating a little bit of a code, but they are not integrating the testing processes, the security checks, their infrastructure is still integrated. So, which means that what the tools and other vendors promise you on a DevOps maturity and other stuff, ask those questions. You see, everything is integrated every single time. And if I can deliver my code at any single point of time, and that is continuous delivery practices. Continuous integration practice and continuous delivery practices is your ability to integrate every single minute or even at least every single end of day. If you can make it, that's goodness in continuous integration. Continuous delivery meaning you can deliver your code safely, so that users don't cry since things are broken and you're making horrible day for them. So safely for the customers. So making that, is the continuous delivery practice aim. There are other sub practices inside them. So to model the CI and CD, there's something called as a pipeline. So pipeline is assume something as a less friction highway. So you have your car or your bikes and go into that highway. It is as smooth as sailing that you just go to your destination and without bumps in your road and all of that stuff. So that kind of a pipeline is what the teams try to model in your Jenkins or other tools. There's so many other tools for CI, but again, the big problem is there is a there is the real expectation of what is good in CI/CD, but what has been implemented is 25% or 30% or 50% of what that is really supposed to be. So we still have a lot of gap. So when you are working in the team, feel free to ask about: are you integrating just the code? Are you integrating? What about the data? What about the testing aspect of it? What about your infrastructure aspect of it? Ask those other four questions also. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm sure they will be blinking at you. Oh my God, you asked us a powerful question and I have an answer. So that is what, in a nutshell of what is CI, CD, and pipeline generally tends to do.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take a quick break to quickly plug my company because we do not have a sponsor. So the sponsor is me. So I'm just going to take a moment to plug that. And then we are starting to get questions in the chat room. So I'll share those with you right after this. Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation. Hey, I think we're back. Keep drinking your water. So I think you're on mute. And this is where I like to remind everybody, won't you please subscribe on YouTube? Where is it? Someone point at it. Subscribe on YouTube. And my boyfriend wrote these jokes. Won't you please usability test the subscribe button and the bell? Make sure they work. Please, click them, tap them, make sure these buttons are working. And of course, won't you please empathize with the like button if you're on YouTube. Won't you please press like and have some empathy for the video? Please, that's all I ask. I ask for so little. That's how you can best support me, is a couple of things that teach the YouTube algorithm that you like what I'm doing. And thanks to my boyfriend for the jokes. So we've got a couple of questions in the YouTube chat room. I'm going to try to use my new system to send them up on the screen. And okay, I need to move that a little bit to the left, but I'm getting there. So let me move that a little bit to the left. Let's see. Too much. All right, I've got to work on that. But Basically, we've got Abuli, who is here, Abi. We've got Abuli and Abi, two different people, and they're throwing questions in the chat room. The first question is, what skills do you recommend UX people should have to collaborate with DevOps?
Thank you, Aboli. So for your question, it is a good question. First of all, so DevOps host, as we just talked a few minutes back, DevOps have the big area of technical practices and also the aspect of culture and the process improvement aspect of the the sites, right? So good there are so many good materials, but unfortunately a lot of these materials goes, if you go down deeper, it goes into some sort of tools like um, I already talked about Jenkins or udeploy or other deployment and other stuff. But I would definitely recommend to read about DevOps. What are these non-tool, tool agnostic practices are? So, what is that principles of DevOps? We talked a little bit three waves of DevOps: wave one, wave two, wave three. And I always recommend. I took the book. It's a DevOps handbook by Jess Humble, Gene Kim. So these guys are the kind of originators, from the. So this is continuous delivery book. So these are my go-to books. So this book talks about the technical practices that a good DevOps organization or teams should follow. If you have technical background, I would definitely recommend to read that continuous delivery book. This is, by the way, it is just crossed 10-year and one of the best-selling books still, right? So, but if you want to understand the three waves, the Phoenix Project by Gene Kim, so it is a really good, lot of good metaphor, and it is actually sort of a novel walks through you on why is the lean an important thing, lead time, cycle time, and the bottlenecks that we try to sub-optimize on different bottlenecks, and what are those techniques around lean, which is the core of DevOps. Unfortunately, people don't even pay attention to that. So this is a good book. And the last book is the DevOps Handbook. If you are a technical or not, and a little bit of a you want to know more about the current state of this is the latest book on DevOps. So if you want to know the latest greatest as per 2018, I believe, then this is a good book. So those are three books I would recommend. And there's good. Okay, so you asked a little bit about a specific skill. So
Yeah,
choose
like
what is
for
your
people
strong
in
area.
UX,
Yeah.
for people in UX, are there any particular skills that we need or anything we could do to better collaborate with our DevOps teammates?
Yes. Yes, definitely knowing about, you started with talking about CI/CD, Debbie, right? That would be definitely a good part to pick up, right? How do we help the engineers and the QA and other folks to, you know, see the pipeline statuses, where does this pipeline sit and what is the maturity of pipeline? These books gives you that. So what level of maturity you are doing in CI, what level of maturity you are in CD. Probably you can ask those questions and help them to get better at doing. I know this is a tough of engineering side, but there is nothing like asking powerful questions. So keep asking those questions.
Yeah,
And
that's
there
a
is
good
other
point.
area
Go
now.
to
Yeah,
your
yeah.
teammates and say, "What can I do for or with you?" rather than us guessing or assuming.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One other big area that is coming up now is the site reliability aspect, of engineering division coming up with the chaos engineering. Those are things. Those are new thing in DevOps world. What they are trying to do is how it is not just enough my services and my products works one time. how would it work all throughout my expectation? What is my service level objectives? What is SLO and SLI? And is my application truly meeting those service level objectives? So those questions are very important from a usability user perspective. Come Black Swan Day, the trades are going catastrophically, market is downing. So did our systems are designed in a way that it is meeting the SLO, SLIs, right?
That
So,
sounds
and
like a
they're
great
injecting,
opportunity
yeah,
for that
yeah.
collaboration, because if you're looking at anything or measuring anything or trying to get feedback around the user experience, whether you're calling it the GUI, the graphical user interface, or we might say the CX or the UX, that sounds like an opportunity for collaboration so that we're not measuring different things or duplicating work or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And you guys should be, I mean, you are as a custodian or accountability on the user experience. It is not about the mundane performance testing once we used to do. The same performance test it gets repeated, but the user journey is completely deviated from what their ideal scenario of performance testing. Those are areas that is a great area to build more visibility and transparency. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry my little screen is being cut off, but Aboli says, thank you, Ishwaran. I will start with the Phoenix project and move on to the handbook. That is the project right there. So, excellent, excellent. Let me move to Abi's got an interesting question. And again, I'm sorry these are cut off, but I'm experimenting with this. Abi asks, what is the minimum size of a project that should adopt DevOps practices?
To be honest, I'll ask a question back to you, Abhi. Who do not want a safe, reliable, and
Organized.
faster deployments, right? So everybody, it doesn't matter. But these DevOps practices we talked about, the technical practices, the cultural practices, and the process aspect of it, you know, is originally designed for the organizations which are struggling to do it at scale. I have hundreds of team, or even just 10 or 20 teams, right? The practice remains the same, right? So there is absolutely no limit to the sizes. Of course, you may not pay some of these attention to some sort of rapid prototyping. You're trying to do, or sort of these design thinking innovation stuff. They wanted to quickly do hack it the way all the way into to prototyping. Probably there again, we all know that that is just for prototyping, for doing some quick demos to win. But that's not what all of us are 90% of us are working on. We are working on mission critical systems, and keeping them up is the core job. That's where our the paycheck comes from. So those need DevOps practices. Those need relentless attention to these DevOps practices.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got a question from Frederick that I'm going to answer first and then throw it at you. And Frederick G asks, we have DevOps, which I'm starting to now get my head around. Thank you, by the way. But where does design ops come into the picture? Does it have a natural interplay with DevOps? So I'm going to field that one with my opinion, and then I'm going to ask you if you have an opinion. Whenever I hear design ops, and whenever I've seen it defined, and maybe I'm just missing the boat on something, it appears to not be something extremely different from what we're doing now. It seems to be a term that's being used for the high-level strategy around the design practice. That the strategies, the principles, the approaches that we'll use, how we interact with other teams and departments, but it's not a completely separate practice. To me, it just seems to be the term we adopted, really, because ops is usually operations. It's the strategy and operational side of UX and CX. That's the impression I've gotten from design ops. Frederick G, tell me if you have a different definition of it. But in that case, Ishwaran, over to you. Is there any special way that DevOps teams or workers would collaborate with the people who in UX are working more on the strategic or operational level?
So yeah, so good question. Actually, to be very honest, this is a word I heard long back, but I never paid attention to this terminology at all. But because it was not a okay, so there is these kind of acronyms and words are being coined all throughout. Even DevOps have another name called DevSecOps,
Yes, I've
right?
seen that.
So you may have seen this, so bringing in security inside dev and ops, and putting it as a DevSecOps. See, and similarly, design. Here, I think, if I'm not wrong, I'm definitely new to this word. From what I know, they're talking about bringing product organization, product and designers into the DevOps mix. Getting them into sitting in the same team, one team with the designer, developer, tester, and operation specialist,
Oh, well, in
all in
that
one
case,
jam
yes,
pack.
that's the way. Well, that's kind of the way agile should work, but you can't code as we're designing. It's a little more assembly line than that. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So those are these so many hypothetical ideas about, hey, bring a designer into the team. All of a sudden, we become a rapid high performance team. Magic can happen. But that's where DevOps goes into stripping off these false assumptions of hey, I bring tester, developer, designer, and operation, and I call as a DevOps done, which is completely pathetic because it is simply impossible before real delivery, you know, with the right product, with the right doing it in the right way, delivering it safely to the customer. It's so much bigger than just putting six people together, right? So, very clearly, what are the big problems in DevOps to enable to faster delivery? Is two things again. Two things. One is the culture. Culture is strategy. If you have a toxic culture where you do not have psychological safety, your messenger is being shot, right?
We're usually
So
that shot
failures are
messenger.
so failures are not taken in the right spirit. Instead, they're being fired if you have landed a failure or something like that. So go to read these books, guys. They talk about Westrum's organization culture, right? What high performance organization have versus the low performing organizations. So those are the cultural aspects that need to improve upon. Number two, the biggest hurdle is your underlying systems architecture. The systems are not designed for the 21st century digital needs. We are probably you might have heard this, Debbie. We are running it in 19th century systems, right? Trying to do a 21st century products. It doesn't work. The years and years of neglect of technical hygiene, tech debts. Uh, Legacy is not inherently bad, but just not giving attention and care, these systems are bleeding. This is one of the things I do as a job, in my day-to-day job, about how difficult is for my system to scale up the need of a 21st century business needs, right? So what is the path that we can go so that it is not I have bold ambitions, but I have systems that support it. That is where the core DevOps culture is fitting.
Yeah,
So it may
good
be a
question.
roundabout answer, but yeah.
No,
But
so
yeah.
and we've got more questions coming in. So I'm gonna Frederick asked a question, and I'm going to kind of ask a variation of it. And that is,
Mm-hmm.
very often in our UX world, we are misunderstood, we are belittled, we're overruled. People think they just sketch screens, anybody could do that. And this leads to a lot of culture problems. Because DevOps has a wave that's so dedicated to culture, could there be interplay between UX workers and DevOps workers or a DevOps team that could help support some of the problems we run into, like disrespect or misunderstandings or people acting like, we don't need UX research, we can guess what people like?
Absolutely, Debbie. That is a core of DevOps culture is, right? Interplay and collaborate. And Agile talks about collaboration, but Agile do not talks to into the culture that is needed. So, so if you recall from 2010 when Agile Manifesto was written, it was a bunch of technology centric extreme programming folks gathered in a mountain resort, and they crafted the Agile Manifesto. Of course there is a lot of sanity to it, but Agile was not enough as it goes into and evolves late 2000 and into 2010. That's where DevOps picked up that big aspect of, you talk about collaboration, but not bold enough. So DevOps talked about technical practices and lean, where you are talking about waste removal, efficiency, lead time, and other stuff, and then cultural aspect of it. So, which means that we're first time a movement talks about culture and they classify, in fact, the organization, if you see DevOps culture, Western culture, they talk about pathological organization, bureaucratic, and generative and progressive organization, right? So there is a huge lacuna, and I'm sure UX experts, being a custodian of user expectations, talk about all of these topics, and yeah, no questions. It is definitely so important.
All right, thank you. Next question is also from Frederick, though it is cut off, and I'll fix that later. And you and I were hoping to talk about this anyway. What's the difference between Agile, Scrum, and DevOps? Ishwaran, go for it.
Great, Frederick. We were talking about it earlier. Yeah, we should address this. This is one of the things I tweeted as or in the LinkedIn. To demystify these words, right? So again, history is important in not just in our personal life, real life, but it is also important in our software development ecosystem, how it evolved, right? So in 90s, right, I'll go from there, and try to finish it quick. So in 90s and before, there was this concept called waterfall, right? So where there is a big bulk of work being done and pages and pages and pages of exact detailed specification of what you need to build should have to be written, get approved literally in a signed document, and hand it over to development. Development finishes, pages and pages of document code, send it to QA organization. The QA organization send it to operations. So everybody was under hook. If you don't do this, your head will be chopped. It's so difficult. In those days, and Agile introduced about people or collaboration over the process stuff, right? So that is a 2002. Then, even at that time, Scrum was still very much in existence. But Scrum also evolved. In 2020, what is Scrum? Was not the Scrum that was invented by Jeff Sutherland, and these guys in 1995 or something, right? Huge change. Of course, it started with four ceremonies, the two artifacts, all of that stuff. That is Scrum was just for, as a team of 5 or 6 members, how do we collaborate on certain agreements? What do we deliver? So that's what Scrum defines. It talks about definition of done, definition of ready, all of that stuff. Those are just the fixtures that is required for teams to work. So agile is about collaboration, continuous delivery, technical practices, design, and other stuff. A lot of things Agile talks about, the Agile Manifesto, but Scrum talks about how do we work in a fixture of a team, right? So DevOps, born in 2009, the word as a movement coin, because Agile could not answer many of the lacuna that is needed for continuous delivery. They defined the word continuous delivery in the manifesto, but there was no guidance about how to do it. So DevOps defined those technical practices. These are the things: CI, CD, trunk-based development, and so many others as the must-do practices. So DevOps gives more prescriptive. How does a culture wants to be has to be? What a psychological safety means. DevOps define that, right? So, what are the things I should measure for? It gives more prescriptive. In fact, in the DevOps handbook that I mentioned, that's where you will get to know what are the real thing that I can take away and go back to my team and start doing it, right? So that's the longer answer again.
That's a good answer. Thank you. We've got another question from Frederick, though it's worded a little bit strangely. I hope it'll work for you. But it looks like this, and it says, "How is the interplay between UX researchers, designers, developers, QAs, users, and product owners in a DevOps regime?"
Okay, so very powerful interplay. So you cannot do DevOps. Okay, so as we just talked about the history of evolution, so you should we cannot pick and choose certain parts and leave the rest. What I try to say is that, hey, I want to do Agile DevOps, but I don't believe in Agile manifesto principles, right? So it is all inclusive practices that is coming better and better as we get into 2020, right? So in DevOps paradigm, so the important area where uh, all three UX researchers, product owners, and engineering team can collaborate is in the process pillar aspect of DevOps, where we talk about lean way of working, right? Limiting the work in progress. Do one thing and do that well, right? So if you if you want to implement a feature, have a solid definition of ready, and it's very well designed and thought through before you implement it, right? And implement, get a feedback, and go back and see if this button, we talked about a button, if this button working well here, or if this button working well when you put it right. If you have good DevOps practice and culture, so what do we recommend for? We recommend the data, right? Who likes it? You conduct an A/B testing, sort of that environment. How do you do that A/B testing? It is impossible to do these kind of data-driven validations, uh, which is core for products and US experience, without having a strong DevOps practice. So that's where these things all collaborate together.
I have to jump in and talk about lean. So, I'm always on fire about lean because to me, lean is about reducing waste, one of the 7 or 8 types of waste that Toyota originally identified, and finding ways to be efficient, reliable, and reduce things that the customer perceives as defects or mistakes or something about your product that's broken. But people who read the lean startup book or sometimes the lean UX book, they sometimes have a very different definition of lean. They seem to think that lean is how little can we do right now and just get to the next step. And that seems so opposite from when you just said lean is let's do one thing and let's do it well. And I prefer your definition. What can someone like you do in an organization when you get there, maybe as a consultant, and you find their definition of lean is really bad because they got caught up with these books for startups and they think lean is, just do the least you can do right here, just keep going. What do you do? How do you improve that?
Yes. Yeah. So you're very very, you're spot on, Debbie, in that aspect. This is a big dichotomy. People get tangled into this. How much good is good enough, right? How much should I do? Should I do the minimal stick and get away, or should I do it in the right way? So, right, this is a big, not just from designer perspective, from engineer's
Yes.
perspective, we all have the same dilemma. When I can do a code and just minimal number of code, just one line code change, and I make it work. Awesome. That was rewarded before, but not in Agile and DevOps world. In DevOps world, particularly, we talk about safety so much. Safe Safely adding the code change, and not just minimal line of code, with lot of improve readability of your code, improve testability of your code, all the way to improve measurability of whether that feature is working or not, all of that stuff. That's the DevOps work. So to answer to your question on my hypothesis, my belief on lean startup and these mechanisms are applicable to labs, in big organization who wants to innovate a new claim processing app or a module,
You're saying like
kind
a
of
research
entrepreneur
and development
research
experimentation.
new product they want to do in the claim processing in an insurance company, or so there they may not have affordability to do full blown, doing it the right way, properly, all the way in, right? So they may prefer this kind of a lean startup way, but the moment you have visibility and attraction, you come back and do it properly. That is where a lot of people, big organizations that come back. That's what the feedback we talked about in DevOps. Wave two is feedback. Wave one is about lean, right? Wave two about feedback, and wave three is about experimentation. The wave two talks about feedback. Come back and fix it properly. Do it right. So once you have attraction, otherwise throw it off and go on, right? So that is just my philosophy or think process. You cannot apply that kind of mentality for a milking cow. You have an application or a system that is a core money transfer system in a bank. You cannot do that kind of a experiment and stuff and fix and come back later. You have to do it with well researched plan of attack.
Great, thank you. It's so nice to hear some of these things from someone else because I'm so tired of lean is the least you can do to go to
Yes.
the next thing. So I don't think so. Thank you. I wanted to also ask you, it's kind of similar, but sometimes when I run into things that are Scrum, then you hear about the definition of done. And I will have people in Scrum say to me, it doesn't matter if it's great or not, it just has to get done. And I've had people say, like, oh, UX, we'll just have people on the Scrum team do the UX work because even though it won't be as great as what you guys could do, it'll get done. And we'll get it done faster. And can you talk a little bit about this definition of done and who decides when engineering is done or UX is done?
Oh yeah. So, I'm still not able to get the full depth of your question, but I can talk about definition of done very well. So Scrum has this concept of definition of ready and definition of done. Right? Definition of ready is the construct that before team starts working on things, that it has to be consumable in a way such that I don't get stuck at least in the 1 or 2 weeks, right? So again, proper scrum, we don't want to go take 10 stories and finish just 3 stories or three work items. We take minimal. Again, lean is always underlying part of the scrum stuff. Take even 2 stories, which is well groomed, where I can really work and crack all the way from coding, testing, deployment, and release. If you could do it in 2 weeks, that is the nirvana. You can accomplish everything in 2 weeks. That is great. Or 3 weeks. You can time box your scrum sprints, whatever way it was. The idea in scrum is that you have you could have different levels of definition of done. One is the sprint definition of done, which is that in 2 weeks what I can do. Then you could extend another level of definition of done, which is before it goes to release definition of done. And you can also have another level of done, if your organization is still not that integrated well, right? Operations or UAT, user experience definition of done. So you could have two or three levels of done and specify what are the items that you can accomplish, and you are in which part of the sprint. Probably your UX or user acceptance testing may not have, you may not be able to do it in every sprint. At least you have to give time for user experience related thing, performance related thing, security related stuff to be done part of your release definition of done. So have this multiple hierarchy of definition of done if your team is could not do all that in one sprint. But never say that, I don't even care about it. Oh, it'll come as a story at a separate point of time. Guys, come on, that never gets done, right? So call in your release definition of that stuff with proper stuffs, and do not just gloss over it. Pay attention to the details. The devil is in the details. When you go to closer to the details, that's where we things gets interesting.
Thanks. That's great. I like the idea of letting each domain create their definition of done, or having a hierarchic approach. That makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like it should be in like a team charter or some sort of document early
Yes.
on where we spell out
Yep.
who's on this team, what are we doing, what are the boundaries where people think there are overlaps, and how do we define something like done. This work is done.
Yes.
Believe it or not, we only have a few minutes left, so let me remind the viewers who are watching live, if you have any questions, now is your last chance. We've only got a few more minutes before we hit the half hour. On my clock, 7:30 p.m. You probably 1:30, I think, in the East Coast. So I'm going to quickly mention a couple of other podcasts and live streams that we have coming up, so you guys can mark your calendars. Tomorrow, of course, is Tuesday, so that is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, where I hang out for an hour and take questions. All of these are always at 6:30 p.m. Italy time, where I am, so adjust for your time zone. You will also find on Wednesday, we're doing successes, failures, and warnings about startups. So come on Wednesday if you want to hear us talk about startups. Mark your calendars for Thursday, September 3rd, if you'd like to talk about personal brand and how to express that on LinkedIn, including lots of secrets about how the LinkedIn algorithm actually works. You're going to want to know that because, let's face it, it's a messy pile of mess. Monday's Labor Day in America. I'm going to take it off. Tuesday, September 8th, Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 9th, Bad Portfolio Advice. Debunking bad UX portfolio advice with super guest Joel Barr. And I forgot to say the Startups has a whole panel of people. There's 4 people joining me for Startups. And finally, mark your calendars for September 10th, where the person who has been my life and business coach since 2006 will be coming on to talk about finding your life purpose. And I scheduled this because many of you ask me, should I even be working in UX? Is UX my career? And I say, I don't know, but I know someone who will. So tune in to the shows that are coming up. And we do have a question. Let's take a look from Roshan. And it says, hi, Debbie and Eswaran. Very useful session. What's UX's role in a retrospective session? I've often seen UX excluded from retros. Do you think UX should be included in retros?
Very good question. But I want to understand how you are positioned in a team. You are plugged into a team as a full-time team member or as a traveling, you member or shared member across multiple teams, right? So the reason that I am asking this question is because I have seen teams operating as a UX representation, as a dedicated representation in teams nowadays. Also, it was done as a central team, and we get looped in on need basis, right? So if you're part of that central team, you are looped in on the need basis. See, what is the theme in the retrospective is. I mean, so this is the agile coach of me talking now. So, but not the DevOps coach. So to me, good retrospectives should have some sort of themes. So, what is that thing that I'm good? It is not about what went well, what didn't go well. That's boring. That may you. I mean, if you have a good scrum master or a coach, they would often advise it. That's a boring thing. You may not have that kind of a, interaction when you're asking the same question again and again. Retro should. There are different types of retrospectives, and one of the common thing is we every week we may retro on something related to deployment problems or something about user requirements not properly. How do you feel about user requirements? Or something else about, hey, I feel totally burned out. It is, I want to be, with this kind of pandemic situation. So how is that going about? There are different themes of retrospective. Try to ask the Scrum Master what sort of retrospective it is. And there is retrospectives of teams, a portfolio level retrospective, or a value stream. In DevOps world, we probably I may not have used the word value stream so many times. I did not use, but that is again core of lean and value stream. So your DevOps value stream level retrospective, then you should participate, right? If it is, if an agenda less, it's open retro, it is just what went well. Probably you will be better off doing something else productive during that time, right? So see what level of interaction you have with the team, and choose what kind of things that you want to join in. But there is definitely Scrum or Agile or any of these does not stop somebody from attending a retrospective except their reporting manager, unless otherwise they talk about managerial impediments or other stuff, right? So otherwise, managers also could be part of these retrospectives. That's a big misunderstanding. Retro is only for team. No, no. Yes, some retrospectives. This is why we do it for every 2 weeks, right? So just 2 weeks. It just flies like anything. So every retrospectives can be of different things, and it could be joint retrospectives. So talk to your scrum master or coach. Hey, and plug in accordingly. That would be my take.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is so often UX is not seen as part of the team. So often we are circumvented or pushed to the side. And that's why I feel like, as much as ceremonies are sometimes wastes of time or another meeting we have to go to, I feel like the more we can show up to these things, the more people get the idea that we are on the team and we are an equal and we are a partner. And so sometimes I do suggest going to these things, even if they sound like no fun, because we want to make sure people remember to include us as a teammate and partner. So knowing that we're just about out of time, Eswaran, tell everybody, where can they find you? Are you a tweeting guy? Are you a LinkedIn guy? Where should everyone follow you?
So unfortunately, I'm still not that big of a extrovert yet, but I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. Those are the two places you can find me. So
How do
I
we
do
spell
occasional
your
conference
Twitter?
talks. ESH_BA. Ish_BA.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a little weird name. I could not find a name that is very close to
It's
it.
okay. Not judging.
Yeah.
And Roshan is adding, exactly. I think UX usually brings in insights developers might have missed out. Thanks for the answer. So guys, we're going to have to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining. It's so good to see you again. I think I saw you over a year ago at an Agile conference where we met. So please stay safe and healthy. I hope I'll see you in a year or two when we're traveling again, or if we come up with another topic. Good luck with first day of school over there in North Carolina. And I guess I'll play us out of here. And everybody, please remember to subscribe and empathize with the like button. Do the things that tell YouTube you enjoy this channel. Please give me the thumbs up. I ask for so little. So Eswaran, thank you again. See you around on LinkedIn. And everybody, bye. See you tomorrow. Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.